friends. It's Sunday. We're here bright and early. Well, for me, it's bright and early. Mars, it's
No, it's not so bright and early here.
bright and early. It's dark and stormy. I don't know. But as you can probably see, we're joined this morning by a really special guest. I am super pumped. I'm really excited. David F. Walker, creator of such books, or co-creator of Bitter Root, Black Panther Party, Frederick Douglass, other short stories, so many other things. I just introduced you. David, who are you? What do you do?
I'm okay. It's like you said, it's bright and early here. Mars, where are you? You're in the Midwest somewhere?
No, I'm actually on the East Coast. I am in a little state called Delaware.
I am aware of Delaware. I don't know why I said Midwest, because if it's 1 o'clock where you are, there's no way it would be Midwest time, or as they say, Central and Mountain. So, but it's bright and early, and I think I'm okay. I think today's a laundry day. Before we went live, I was telling you both that I'm down to my last semi-clean pair of underwear, and going to a convention this week. And so therefore I need clean draws, because there's nothing worse than doing a convention with dirty underwear and stanky breath.
No. And being a person around that person.
Yes. And they just announced at Emerald City Comic-Con that masks are going to be mandatory.
Yeah.
And which is awesome. I am totally in favor of that. But my whole going to a convention with stanky breath, it's changed considerably now that when you're wearing a mask, right? Because sometimes you just get a whiff of your own breath, and it's like, woo, yeah. So I've enough of that. How are you both doing this morning?
Doing well. Really excited to have you here. Thank you so much for joining. Like, seriously, thank you so much for joining us.
And David's our first creator guest, which is really exciting.
Well, no, I should be somebody's first something at some point in my life, and I feel like it might as well be with this. And Jennifer, when did I meet you? Was it at I think it was at Rose City Comic-Con, but was it like last year? I think
it was. It was last year. I interrupted you while you were eating a burrito. That's right. I was like, oh my goodness, like I wish that I had something. I don't know. I come on the internet and I talk to people, and I talk about comics, and I talk about books, and then I get in front of people in real life, and I'm the most awkward person. Anyways, so I interrupted you while you were eating a burrito. You were lovely enough to sign a copy of the Image First Bitter Root, and I was like, yeah. I do this show. I do Casually Comics. I have a YouTube channel. It's called Comics Will Break Your Heart. And you're like, yeah, I think I've heard of that. And I didn't pass out, but I wanted to.
I remember getting that text, just being like, Mars, I'm at David F. Walker. And I'm like, oh, that's freaking awesome. I love Bitter Root. And she's like, Mars, he knows what Casually Comics is. And I'm like,
yeah. So whether you were lying and just making me feel nice, but I really appreciated it.
It was two things. One is I had heard of both, and then also that burrito wasn't very good.
Oh,
and so
okay.
I was, I knew I needed to finish eating it, because I needed, all the nutritional value that it offered, but I needed a break from the taste, because it was I'd sent somebody out to go get me food, and this is what he came back with, and it was just
oh no.
But
and here I heard all the food in Portland was good,
all except this one place, which was like I can't remember the name of it, and I wouldn't want to say it, because even if I did remember, it would open us all up to libel suits and slander. But
well, shit, we've got to change the format of the show, because trash every week.
Well, I should say potentially opens you up to slander and libel. So, but it's interesting, because that was the whole, that was sort of the beginning of the, I guess you'd call the new normal, that show, right? That was the first one of the first shows that a lot of us had been back to, And it was just weird because it's like you're meeting people, but you're meeting people with masks on and trying to figure out like, oh, do I know this person? And how, like, as if it wasn't hard enough to figure out if you knew complete strangers that you only knew from following them on social media. So,
yeah. And we frequent the sale. I mean, we've met at like Books with Pictures, and like there's other events that you've done. In Portland, you did a talk with Douglas Wolfe, who wrote all of the Marvels, and just about a month or so ago, you sat down with James Spooner, who did The High Desert, which was another great book. So definitely, you've got my vote for comic book mayor of Portland in general.
I think Steve Lieber deserves that because he's nicer than I am, and he's just more easygoing. I'm more like that behind the scenes. I'm the person who has the mayor's ear, who's like, okay, this is who we need to kill.
So you can be Steve Lieber can go ahead and be Bush, and you can be Cheney.
There you go. Oh my God, that's the greatest comparison ever. No, but it's funny too because going again, that's one of those things. Like the Books with Pictures event with James Spooner, maybe a week or two before, they'd done something at Books with Pictures, and there was a more sizable crowd at that event. But again, everybody was wearing a mask, and it was one of those things where I was convinced I knew everybody. And you know what it's like? It's a lot like looking through somebody else's high school yearbook, and you're convinced you know all of those people because really there's only like 100 people in this country, and everybody looks exactly the same and era by era. So you have to look at a high school yearbook from your era to think you know everybody there. But and that's sort of what it's like, because you're trying to figure people out by their eyes or the shape of their ears or whatever. Yeah. So anyway, there's that. That's sorry, that's all I've got to offer. I'll see you later.
Okay. Thank you for joining us today.
No.
So you said that you had gone to San Diego, and I know that I've never personally been to San Diego Comic-Con, but I know the perception is that it's this like big, huge con, but it's actually in it's a little bit like toned down. But you went there a couple weeks ago. How was that?
It was only a little bit toned down. It was let's see. It's not the craziest it's ever been. So I've been going to San Diego since the late 90s. And so when you say it's toned down, it was like there was the what I would call the Harry Potter / Twilight years. And so this was around 2006 or 7, I think, where the shift started happening, right? And before that, you could get a ticket like the day of. You could just show up on a Saturday, buy a ticket, get in. That was what it was like, right? And so what it was like this year was just a little bit after that transition had happened. So we'll say like maybe 2010-ish or something. So it wasn't as insane as it was, say, 2018, 2019, but it was still like holy shit, I was not prepared for it. And I've been to, let's see, I went to WonderCon this year. I went to Heroes Con in North Carolina for the first time. And none of those sort of, those didn't like overwhelm me the way San Diego did. I honestly was not prepared for it. But it was still awesome. I mean, it would have been more awesome if it wasn't so insane, but it felt like everybody's trying to get back to normal, and there ain't no such thing as there is never any such thing as normal anyway. So, but it was a good time overall. I would say that, I kind of feel like, oh yeah, I don't need to go every year at this point. But the fact that I didn't go in 2020 or 2021, nobody went. I really felt like I'd been missing something. And then, 20 minutes on the floor, you get next to that person who isn't wearing their clean underwear. And even though they're wearing a mask, they got the stanky breath. And you're like, oh, this is what I was missing. You know how much a slice of pizza costs at the convention center in San Diego?
Like $10 plus, I'm sure.
I'm saying 12.
$17.
What the fuck?
All right, I'm out. No,
Yeah,
yeah, definitely never
And that was like the moment where I was like, yo, wait a minute. And this I don't know if you ever heard these stories or not, but they're absolutely true. Like most restaurants around the convention center have a completely separate menu for the week of Comic-Con with higher prices, everybody. So like, that's when you know, you're like, oh God, this is what, I forgot that this is what it was like. I forgot that normally parking is $25 a day, but now it's $45 a day. And that's kind of the downside to it, because it really, it's turned into very much a, it's almost like an amusement park sort of thing, except there's like, it's not that amusing. There's no rides, right? There's no Captain EO. There's nothing like that. So, but if you haven't gone, I still feel like everybody who's, part of this world, part of this community, it almost feels like it's like a pilgrimage. Like you have
rite
to
of passage.
Yeah, it is. But I mean, I remember my first time, but my first time was so different, because it was like,
you've been able to watch it grow from what it was in the 90s to the major conglomerate it is now.
Yeah. And it was, and but it's also interesting because San Diego is one of those cities where, like, I honestly, I don't know if I've ever been there without going to Comic-Con, right? Like I'd have to, like, other than like layovers at an airport or something, right? And it's a city that you can see how much it's changed over the years. Like I can really see it, but I don't know the city that well. Like I know these little pockets of it, and we can see it wherever if we lived anywhere for any considerable amount of time. You can see those sort of changes. You'd be like, oh yeah, that used to be a Burger King over there, and now it's a it's a methadone clinic or whatever. And San Diego has changed so much that it's one of the few cities where I can go to and go, oh well, I remember when there was nothing over here, and oh look, now there's a and so there is a really weird relationship, because I feel like there's 3 or 4 places that that I almost feel like they're my home away from home, and that's one of them. And so it was in and of itself was weird going back, because I have one of my best friends lives there, so I always stay with him and his fiance, and it's far enough away, and this conversation, I'm boring people now, aren't I? Right now?
No.
Like, and then I get up every morning and I have coffee and I have my own guest bedroom, and no, there is a weird dynamic when you do a lot of conventions. There's some cities where you're like, nope, this ain't it. This isn't my. I don't feel like I'm just in and I'm out. When I went to Charlotte it was my first time in North Carolina. It definitely felt like, okay, yeah, I saw the airport, I saw the convention center, I saw a handful of restaurants, and that was it. And I didn't, I don't know a ton of people that live there, so I didn't really experience the city. And to me, it's weird especially when you travel someplace for business, because you don't necessarily get a real feel for a place, right? And whereas I guess this is a long-winded way of saying San Diego is kind of like, whatever. It's like my retreat. Maybe it's like my fortress of solitude or something, Not to say I'm like Superman, because I'm better than Superman.
Now, you do a lot of conventions. Are there any conventions that are your favorites? Are there any conventions where you're like, oh, I'd never touch that again? Because every time I think of San Diego and even New York Comic Con, I'm like, I would, as much as I'm invested into this whole comics thing, I would be totally okay if I never saw either, just because the amount of people freaks me out.
Yeah.
It's interesting because I'm to a point now where that I guess I like psych myself out, because a lot of people really, under normal circumstances, would freak me out, right? But I go to the grocery store and there's too many people, I can't handle it, right? But I go to a convention and there's 100,000 people, and it's a kind of overwhelming, but it's like, oh yeah, no, this comes with the territory, right? I can tell you,
like these are my people, even though like it's complete. Sometimes I'm like, these are my people, I guess.
Yeah, and then I go, no, I'm better than all of them. There's a tiny little show in New York, which they haven't had this show since January of 2020, but it's up in Harlem at the Schomburg Research Center, and it's I can't remember even what they call it. We just call it the Schomburg Show, but it's like the Black Comic Book Weekend or something. That's my favorite show of all time, right? It used to only be a day, now it's 2 days, and it's just like Harlem is my favorite part of New York City. It's one of my favorite places in the United States, and there's a ton of creators who are my friends that go to this particular show, and it's just like that's my honest God favorite show. I did a show in Florida, I don't know, 7 years ago, and like Florida is a place I never need to go to again. I've been there one other time.
Florida's the great. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, right. Florida. There's a bunch of states that I'm like, yeah, I don't ever really need to go there again. Yeah. But with Florida, I really don't ever need to go there again. And I can't remember the name of this particular show, but it was hands down like the worst show I've ever been to. And it was and the worst part was it was in northern Florida. It was in Jacksonville. So it was like, Jacksonville ain't even Florida. If anyone from Jacksonville is listening, I'm sorry, but Jacksonville is like Georgia. It's like southern Georgia, right? So I don't even think there's alligators in Jacksonville. So like, unless you run the risk of being attacked by an alligator in a swimming pool,
it's not Florida.
It's not Florida. Yeah. So so that's probably the worst. And it's kind of show by show for me. Actually, I just lied to you both. The worst show I've ever been to, and was in Medford, Oregon, and so I do have this. I'll go to a show if I'm invited, and if they're willing to put me up, and if I know people that live in the region, because it's like, it gives me an opportunity to, break bread, maybe dinner or breakfast with somebody I know. And I have a few friends that live down in the Rogue Valley, as they call it. And if either of you ever been to Medford, aka Methford, Portland
gets a bad rap, but like,
yeah. So here you go, Mars, just so you know. Okay, so Portland is up here at the top of the state, and Methford is right around where the anus of the state would be, right? So so that show was I'm so rude. I'm so terrible, aren't I? It's like a 4.5 hour, 5 hour drive down there. I went down there, had dinner with my friends that night, had breakfast with my friends in the morning, got to this convention. There was no creators there, none whatsoever. There was a handful of vendors that had like back issues of whatever, and then everything else was sort of a crafty sort of thing, right? Ooh. Arts and crafts. And they didn't have a table for me, and I was like, okay.
And they invited you.
Yes, they invited me. But they invited me because someone who lives down there suggested that they invite me, right? So so I have a panel, and it's at the public library, but there's like 2 buildings or something. And so I was like in the annex, I guess. I don't know what the hell building I was in, but I got lost trying to find the room that I was in. And then it was me and the volunteer who was at the door, like guiding people. There was nobody there for my panel, right? And I am not making this up. At some point, a blind guy comes into the room, and he had on, and this was before the Daredevil show, so it wasn't like he was cosplaying. He walks in and he goes, "Excuse me, I'm I'm visually impaired. I don't know where I am. I'm lost. And I was just like, I said, hey, well, this is where you are, and you can hang out if you want, man. You know, it's like I'm feeling like I'm lost too. And so it was the most ridiculous panel I've ever done. And I walked out. My friends who I'd had dinner with the night before had gone to the wrong building, so they missed me completely, right? And so then I end up having lunch with them and was like, yeah, I'm out. Like, I mean, so I left my panel, found my friends who were in the wrong building. We went to Red Robin, the Medford Red Robin, which, if it's possible for a Red Robin to be like below Red Robin standards, like this was it, right? That's like saying, oh, I went to an Olive Garden and the food sucked. It's like compared to
family.
Yeah, compared to what? And so I left. And so that was probably the worst show I've ever done.
Wow.
I feel like now I just need to kickstart like an anthology series where like creators just like dish their worst con experiences, because it's like, how do you beat that? A blind guy walks in and just says, hey, I'm lost. I need help.
It was, you know, and actually he ended up staying for the panel, which wasn't really a panel. It was just like, after he came in, like 3 or 4 other people, but everybody who came, I'm not exaggerating, they were all people who had gotten lost looking for something else. And so by the end of the panel, there was less than 6 people there. And, you know, one of those people was the volunteer, the library volunteer. And so we just kind of had this like random discussion. It was like, you know, what's your favorite sugar substitute was like probably what we were talking about. So, but it was, you know, at the end of the day, I may joke and complain about this sort of stuff, but, you know, there's worse things to have to do than, you know, go to a convention.
It's part of the experience.
Yeah, it's all part of it. And the thing is like I've known people who like shit like that kind of breaks their spirit, right? And I could see it definitely breaking your spirit if you invested a lot of money going to something like that, right? But this was one of those shows where it was like, okay, yeah, I drove, I listened to an audiobook on the way down, you know, had dinner with friends, had breakfast with friends, had lunch with friends. So I got 3 meals and I didn't have to pay for any of them, right? So there you go. Because I don't pay for meals. That's my thing. Jennifer will tell you that. Jennifer's bought me waffles. And I was like,
I was like, hang out and let's get waffles. My treat, man.
Yeah. And I'm always like, yo, it is your treat. So
it was a treat.
But yeah, that's it. I mean, I would say if you do have like, you know, I haven't been to a convention as just a person going in so long. I don't know. I can't imagine what it would be like. And so I can't be like, oh, you should go. It'll be great. Because even if you have social anxiety or it's so totally worth it. You know, New York Comic Con, which I'll probably be going to this year, worst bathrooms. Like the Javits Center does not have enough bathrooms. And you would think in a city like New York, whoever built that place would have been like, okay, we need enough bathrooms so that no one has to stand in line for an hour. But like that's the show that it's like, hey, have you ever worn an adult diaper? You might want to wear it at this show because who knows if you're going to make it to the bathroom in time. So
that is the most honest review of New York Comic Con I've ever had, and I'm very thankful for it.
Yeah, no, it's there's what I can tell you, and I'm not going to divulge how you get there. There are secret bathrooms at the Javits Center, right?
Backstage, let us know.
Yeah, every convention center. Here's the thing: most people don't know. They have these secret corridors and shit like that. That unless you know how to access them, you're because they're not meant for the general public, right? Mm-hmm. But at the Javits, I figured out where the secret bathrooms were. And so I've never had to wait but I've never had to wait in line, but the bathrooms are hella scary. They're and not like disgusting, like shit on the wall scary, more like, you know, like there's a serial killer waiting in the closet area.
No.
Sort of like,
it's literally Maniac of New York.
Yes, I was gonna say it's just like the movie Maniac, where you're looking around for Frank Zito, and you're like, oh shit, is he gonna come scalp me at any minute? So yeah.
Well, at San Diego Comic Con, you won a couple Eisners
Mhm.
for continuing series for Bitterroot, and then for the oh my goodness, what side am I on? The Black Panther Party.
Mhm.
What was that like?
Oh, that was surreal. You know, uh,
Did you have like an idea that you were going to were you like every year is my year, but this is my year to win?
oh, not at all. Not even. Come on, really? Like, no, um, I was thoroughly convinced we were going to lose for Bitterroot because we had won in 2020. Um, and even though if anyone pays attention to the Eisners, it's not unusual for any particular book or particular team to win multiple years in a row. But in my mind, I was like, there's no way we're going to win because we were nominated in 2019 and we didn't win. We won in 2020. We were nominated in 2021, and I was like, and we didn't win. So I was like, okay, 2022. I mean, we were up against, amongst other things, we were up against something that's killing the children. So we're tied with. But I was pretty convinced we weren't going to win for that. And then I had to psych myself out to the point where I convinced myself that we wouldn't win for the Black Panther Party. Because if we didn't win, I think honestly, I think I would have felt really disappointed and heartbroken. Just the amount of work that Marcus and I put into it, and it's not to say that other creators don't put a lot of work into their, you know, into their material, but that book means so much to me, and Marcus's work means a lot to me in that. So it was really, and this isn't bullshit. Like, I wanted to win for him. You know, it was like, and so the way the ceremony went, it's long. Oh my God, it's like you sit there forever. And the two categories that I was nominated in were amongst the last four to be read off. Right, so it's pushing midnight, and now I don't drink, but I once in a while will do edibles or smoke. And I'm not going to say that I'd done too much of either of those before the Eisners, but reality was a little bit warped for me.
Okay.
And so time had slowed down incredibly. And when they announced the best continuing series and that Bitterroot had tied, at that moment I was like, there's no way I'm gonna win this other one. And so I like, that's kind of part of what was running through my head as we were walking up to the stage. And I was convinced I was going to trip because I was having trouble walking because my legs someone had put lead in my pockets. And it just, but it was a really good feeling. And, you know, with Bitterroot, the, you know, Chuck, my co-writer, Sanford, our artist, our personalities are very, very different, right? And I tend to be the one in the middle between the two of their two extremes. And so there was this part of me that was like really celebrating for the two of them, and I didn't have much time to process. Get back to the table. I think there was one other award they gave out, and then they called off the one for where Black Panther Party won. And so again, there wasn't enough time to process any of it, other than the fact that I was like, oh, my ex isn't here with me, which is good because she's a jinx, and I would have lost if she was here. So there was that. Not to sound petty.
We love petty here. Petty is kind of our brand here. But that's excellent. This is an incredible book, and I would really love to see I would love to see an adaptation of the book of the Portland Black Panther Party. I would love to see that in a comic book as well. I think it would be a great, you know, companion piece to this, but this is a really like great book for history, but it's also heartbreaking. There's a lot of really heartbreaking moments that go into the history of this. So, but fantastic read.
Thank you so much. It was a heartbreaking project to work on too. It really took a lot out of me. There's moments where I feel like it probably shaved a couple of years off my life in terms of the amount of stress and just when you immerse yourself, or when I immerse myself in something that's filled with like a lot of heartbreak and murder and things like that. You don't wake up feeling good about yourself in the morning. I mean, I didn't wake up feeling good about myself in the morning before. And so now it's like even more so. But no, I appreciate everything you're saying about the book, because it really, I look at it and it's like, okay, like that's the book I can look at and go, I worked my ass off on that one. And I have worked my ass off on just about, a good 10% of everything that I do. Everything else is just me half-assing it. But yeah.
Well, speaking of something else that you've worked on, and I do have like a pinned comment here for it. Mm-hmm. You have a Kickstarter going, which just got fully funded as of yesterday, I believe.
I think so. Yeah. I keep forgetting that I have, like, this was a total last minute Kickstarter. I did one last year for the same project. We met the goal, fulfilled all the rewards. It was for a book, but I'm all out. I have like in total, like maybe 4 copies of the book left. And,
oh, wow. Okay.
And anyone who's been paying attention will know that like the cost of printing has gone way up, cost of paper has gone way up. And I thought to myself, if I'm going to do another printing, I need to do it now. And like between the time I did the campaign last year, July of last year, but I priced everything out in April, the printing, the shipping, all that stuff. So between April and July, or no, not excuse me, April and September, when I was ready to go to press, the cost of printing and paper had gone up like 10% or something like that. And so I wasn't able to print as many as I'd hoped. And then shipping, blah, blah, blah.
That shipping is where it'll get you.
Oh, yeah. Especially like overseas, or not even overseas, because Canada ain't overseas for anyone who is wondering. It's just a short drive from here. It's I can drive to Canada more quickly than I can drive to Idaho. Not that I'd ever want to drive to Idaho.
Or back to Medford.
Yes. And so I just decided, you know what, let's just get, I would only feel comfortable if I had a certain number of books handy for when I go to conventions, when I do that sort of stuff. And there comes a point where I sort of feel like, oh, the inventory is old and I don't need it. But again, going up to Emerald City, I don't have anything for that show. Mm-hmm. And so I decided to do a second Kickstarter, and it just seemed like, I could, if I time it right, I could start the campaign right before Emerald City. I could wrap it up right after Rose City. And so we'll see what happens. But but I keep forgetting. Like, I don't get up in the morning and check the Kickstarter first thing. It's like, first thing I do is I get up and see what's going on with Ezra Miller, because, who wouldn't? Who doesn't want to know what's going on with the Flash?
Yeah. Like, did they catch him yet? What is so this book, or this Kickstarter, is for a second printing of Badass Mofo, right?
Yep.
And it's the 25-year anniversary.
Yep.
What's your like pitch for it? Like, why? I mean, other than like you do it, like, duh, come on. But like, what's the pitch for the book? Like, why do people? What's in this book?
Well, so in the back in the 90s, I started publishing a zine called Badass Mofo. So last year was the 25th anniversary. So the first issue of Badass Mofo had come out in 96, but I'd started working out in 95, came out in 96, and honestly, like the person that I am now, that you're talking to, the career that I have, that was in a lot of ways was the beginning of it, right? And it was something, my first time at San Diego Comic-Con, my first few times, was there with my zine. And there was another publication back in those days called Giant Robot, which was Eric Nakamura and Martin Wong. And there's a, for lack of a better description, was like an Asian American pop culture zine. And they invited me to go down to San Diego and share a table with them. And they were both like, but especially Eric was like, there's hardly any other zine publishers at these sort of shows, and it's really possible to just to fit in. And I was a failed comic creator at that point, but I'd always wanted to go to San Diego, and so I went, and that sort of in a lot of ways opened a lot of doors for me, because I met a ton of people. And I started from 98 to about 2000, I want to say 4 or so, maybe 2005. I was a regular at San Diego. I had a table, I had a booth. The last time I set up, interestingly enough, was again, I want to say it was 2005 or so, but I shared a space, and I was sharing it with a friend of mine who at the time had a t-shirt company. I think he still has it. But it was me, him, Bill Mosley from House of a Thousand Corpses and all that sort of stuff. So that's how we could figure out, because House of a Thousand Corpses had just come out. Mm-hmm. So whenever that was. And so it was weird, because like Rob Zombie came by and hung out at the table, and it was this really bizarre experience, but it was like the worst in terms of money-making show for me. And that was the year I was like, yeah, I'm done. Like, there's no way for me to make money at this thing anymore. And, but I kept going, because I would get invited to panels, and because there was someone else at the time, another David Walker, who always got a professional badge. And I would always get there and go, hey, I'm here to pick up my professional badge. And that's how I would get in. Right. So,
there is another David Walker author who also does comics, and then you've got the F.
but it's not the guy who just did that I can't remember the title. It's a really nice book for
Compass.
Image. Yes, it's not him. It was somebody else.
There's another one walking around.
I've never heard from him, right? So clearly, even though I'd gotten his professional badge a couple of times, we'll say 3 at the most, I never heard from him, if he said something to me today, if he reached out to me, I'd find a way to make amends. Right. But so Badass
show right now, just steaming.
But yeah, Badass Mofo was just sort of my it opened a lot of doors for me, and but more important, it's the sort of thing that maybe I should be embarrassed by it. Maybe I should be ashamed of it. It's not the most professional of things, but it's part of me. And I'd been talking to some friends, and they were, at the time, they'd said, oh, you should do something for the 25th anniversary. And I was kind of like, nah, nobody really cares. And then I was like, well, wait a sec. Like, I care. Like, it's like, this is part of me. This is no worse than looking at my 3rd grade class picture where I look like, like a total goofball, but it's like, but this is what I look like, a total goofball. And so that's a lot of what went into the decision to celebrate this thing. Because, for me, I can't, like, trying to conceive of where my career would be today without that is impossible. It's like trying to conceive of, where my life would be without oxygen or without water. So I still look at the book and I'm like, oh my God, this is horrible, but it's also kind of awesome too. So yeah. And I didn't want it to be forgotten. I think that, there's I think there's a lot to be said for the crap that we do, right? For the not the best stuff. Mm-hmm. As people and creators, because we grow and we evolve from them. And if you try to disavow that sort of stuff, or you try to erase it as an individual and as a creator, you're never going to grow. And I think that as a society, especially here in the US, like we're a society that thrives on erasing what's come before, right? And even if it sucks, even if it's problematic, even if it's like horrifically offensive in every way, shape, or form, we shouldn't get rid of it. Like we should keep it around to learn from it, right? And you know, and it can come with a disclaimer. It can say, okay, you know, this right here was, while Deep Throat was a really popular movie in the early 70s, it was, you know, exploitative and it was pornographic and it was blah blah blah. But this is how it came to be. This is what came afterwards, and da da da. It's weird to say that everything has historical importance, but everything does have historical importance. And if we can't learn to contextualize it and analyze it and acknowledge it, and I'm not saying appreciate it, right? So I'm never saying, oh, we need to appreciate whatever, you know, the horrific, you know, whatever horrific things might be there, or things that we find offensive, but we do need to understand it. But I think that is even on a personal level, right? Like if you don't understand the mistakes you've made or your failures, you're never going to hit any level of success. And I'm working with an artist right now, and I had to send her an email because I know I'm sending her too many notes in terms of like, change this, change that, dude. And I said to her, you know, I hope you understand that I haven't hired you for us to be successful right now. I've hired you so that we can fail together, because the only way we're going to find the success that we need as a team is through failure. And I've never had so much fun failing right now. I think she's upset by it. And you know, because I'm like, oh no, these, like, you need to change these eyes because they're not this way or that, you know. But I've never felt so empowered by my own not knowing what the hell I'm doing, right? It's because I also know that on the other side of this, there's something kind of cool waiting for me. I have to get through the, you know, the swamp of despair.
I love that. One of the things that you had mentioned at the like Books with Pictures Con is basically like someone in the audience asked, like, what advice do you have for creators? And I think one of the things that you said was kind of just that, like, do it, because there's people out there who are putting out like stupid shit, but they're getting pretty famous for it, but they're putting out stupid stuff. So yeah, it just matters that you get stuff done.
Nothing. I am absolutely unaware of a single thing that came out perfect the first time, even if it's something that, you know, whether it's a movie or a song or a book that any of us may look at or enjoy. I'm not aware of anything that was like that arrived fully formed, and there's a lot to be said for learning from. I'm not going to say our mistakes. It's learning from our accomplishments, and so even if it sucks, it's an accomplishment, right? Yeah. If you're never going to learn how to be a good comic creator if you don't create comics, but if you create comics, you're going to make some stuff that's bad, right? And there's some stuff that I've made that's been published that's sitting on people's shelves that I think is garbage, right? And I'm never going to name those titles or the publishers that I did the stuff for, Marvel. But it's, you know, again, I learned from it, and that's the thing. It's like, how do you learn from? I'm a firm believer in how do you learn from again, not failure so much, but from, you could call them shortcomings, or you could just call them outcomes, right? Like, what did you learn from this process? What did you learn from this experience? You know, this project over here, I learned I don't like working with an editor who works this way. This project over here, I have trouble working with an artist who works this way. Okay, this project right here, I learned that I can't count on the marketing team of a publisher to get the book to where it needs to be. Every sort of thing, there has to be well, there is a lesson. There are lessons to be learned. The question is, are we going to learn from them, or are we going to go, oh, you know, God, this person's a total scumbag and da 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 da? It's like, yeah, you're not going to get anywhere with that. I mean, you can still think that way, because I do. Yeah. I mean, I have a long list of scumbags that I can't stand, but yeah.
I know we've got that list. I want to know the David.
Yeah, over waffles we can compare, and yeah.
Compare scumbag lists.
Well, it's you know, it's interesting because in this industry, I think at best we're maybe 3 degrees of separation. Like, I think almost all of us are about 3 degrees of separation, especially here in the US. It's just, it's such a small industry, right? You know, you can go to a convention and it's like, you know, God forbid there's a fire at, you know, the Javits Center during New York Comic Con. Like, the comic industry is over, right? As we know it. If everybody died at New York Comic Con, we'd be
no more comics.
Yeah, no more comics, because not only are most of the creators there, but it's like that's such a concentration of the fan base too. It's bonkers. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's there's, I don't even know what my point was, other than we all know each other, or we're all almost about to know each other.
That's true.
So true. Mars, what question? Yeah.
Oh, you're ruining my segues. Listen, I'm like, and speaking of getting to know each other, because this is Casually Comics, and of course, we always want to treat these things like just like a hangout. So like, I want to know, David, like, I want to know, like, obviously you're in comics, you write comics. I'm assuming that you read comics, of course.
Well, not the way Jennifer does. No.
Well, nobody. I'm her co-host, and nobody reads comics the way that Jennifer does. But are you reading any comics right now? Do you have a pull list? Any favorites that you're reading?
I don't have a pull list. I haven't had a pull list in a very long time, and so I'm terrible, because I understand the importance of the pre-order, right? I very seldom pre-order anything. I tend to buy stuff based on if I know people who've written it, or if I read a review that sort of catches my eye. But I don't often read reviews that really make me go, okay, this is something I want to check out. I just binge read all of Something is Killing the Children, which I had not read before the Eisner ceremony. I knew of it, and I know James's work, but it's just something that, like, while it was on my radar, I hadn't gotten to it. Yeah. And then after the Eisners, I was like, okay, now it's time to get to it. And so I bought the first trade collection. It was sort of with the, okay, let's see what all the hype is about. And I was like, holy crap, this is a great book. I read it all in one sitting. Next day, I went and bought all the others, read all of those in 2 sittings. So that was 4 volumes. And then the House of Slaughter spinoff came out, which I haven't read yet, but I bought. So I'm sort of on this, like, and I like James's work, right? But I'll be 100% honest. I'd never read anything other than like the DC stuff. I hadn't gotten around to reading the indie stuff, and which was a mistake, because normally I would never do that. Now I'm like, oh, wait a sec. Like, yeah, okay, James wrote some good Batman stuff. I'm not going to take that away. But no, the indie stuff, same thing, like with someone like Matt Rosenberg.
It's like the training wheels come off. It's like you don't have the editor saying, hey, we have to have our credits by this page. This character has to show up by this page. When you're writing indie, it's literally, you know, your art at its most freest. Yeah.
And so that's, I'm on that like thing right now. I'm probably read some more of James's stuff. Going up to Emerald City next week, so I'll probably grab some more things there. I just bought, but I haven't read. I finally got around to buying. Tyler Boss has a book called like Dead Dog's Bite.
Dead Dog's Bite, yeah.
And I've read the first issue, and I was like, holy crap! So I finally got around to getting the trade, but I haven't read the trade. Nor have I read the trade for What's the Farthest Place from Here, although I've read the first 2 issues of that.
Yeah.
And that's Tyler Boss and Matthew Rosenberg. And so both of those are sitting in the pile of, okay, finish reading those. But
he's a hell of a cartoonist in the way that
oh my God,
he just conveys emotion in such a subtle manner. It's wonderful.
I think Four Kids Walk Into a Bank is probably the best comic of the last 10, 15 years.
I always say it's my favorite comic of all time. And people are always like, what is this book?
Yeah.
Who is this publisher? And I'm like, listen, I don't care. Read the book. It's phenomenal.
I knew Matthew just casually before I read that book. I think that's a prime example, and I think he's a prime example, and I've told this to his face, so I'm not like talking behind his back. I feel like that's a prime example of talent that's being wasted at Marvel or DC.
Right.
And
it's funny because I met him years ago and we had a conversation. It was right when Four Kids came out. We were talking about that. We Could Never Go Home. He really hadn't busted into like the big two. He was doing a couple things here and there at Marvel. He had done a Black Canary issue, a random issue number 7. And at the time, me being the DC fangirl I was like, I love your work. Is there any characters at DC that you would want to write? And he's like, the only one I've ever wanted to write is right here, because he was signing my Black Canary. Yeah. And now fast forward to 2022 and the man's on Batman. He's doing DC versus vampires. And I'm like, what is the truth? But it's the truth. It's like, I love seeing, don't get me wrong. I love when creators get to write these big characters that we all know and love. And you've had a chance to write some characters we all know and love as well. But like, it's when you get to that indie stuff, when the imagination is wherever it wants to go, that that's why I love comics,
And I've never met Tyler Boss. But Tyler is literally at this point is the number one creator I want to not just meet. I want to pick his brain, because what he does visually, especially in Dead Dog's Bite, is what I want to do, but I don't draw, right? Yeah. And so I'm in the process of trying to figure out how to work with an artist to do essentially what Tyler does, but in my own way, working with an artist to create that rhythm, that emotion. And I'm enthralled by it. And I think what they did with, especially with Four Kids Walking to a Bank, is some of the most innovative comic storytelling I've seen in a long time. And the fact that it isn't on everybody's shelf, right? There's some stuff most people have.
Of course, it's like, watch.
No. Yeah. Hear me out. Because I gotta be that person. So what if I told you I had not one, but 2 copies of the trade, because I'm that much of a psychopath for this book?
Well, so I wouldn't judge you harshly, because I don't know where my 1 copy is. And I almost bought a 2nd copy like 2 weeks ago. I was like, how did I loan? Because I don't loan stuff to anybody. It's very, very rare. And
don't do it. You'll never get it back.
Yeah, especially if it's someone you're dating, right? Because you're definitely never going to get it back. And so I can't figure out where my copy of Four Kids is at. I'm also very disorganized. But there's been about 3 times where I've been at the comic store, both at Books with Pictures and Cosmic Monkey, which is more of my regular store. And I'm holding it in my hands. I'm like, should I buy a 2nd copy? Because there's stuff I have where I've got more than 1 copy, but it wasn't intentional. It was like, oh, look, this Middle West book looks really interesting. I've been meaning to get it. And then you get it home and it's like, wait a minute, I already have this. And that's embarrassing, right? Like, and so it's happened enough. Jennifer's laughing. I think it's probably happened to Jennifer.
It happens every week.
Yeah. So it doesn't happen every week for me, but it's happened enough that I feel like, why would I intentionally buy this? And I do that because I'm one of those people that, I've got this movie on DVD, and wait a sec, there's a Blu-ray, and wait a sec, the Blu-ray's got a 15-minute featurette. 15 minutes of something that I will watch one time. But let me get it. So, we're all nuts. And then you posted that thing, Jennifer, this morning, I was like, oh my God. That thing about books and what did it say?
Oh,
Because
I'll have to go to it, but it basically said, I don't just, okay, here it is. Sure, maybe you don't need more books, but what if, and hear me out, the books need you. And, you know, when you and I sat down several months ago, we kind of had this conversation of like, why do we buy all these books? Or at least me, like, well, why am I buying all these books? And I'm more enabled. Or
yeah, it was. I saw that and I was like, "Fuck you, you fucking! Why would you post that?" Because I understand that thinking, and it's dangerous thinking because it justifies, you know, basically being a hoarder. But it's at the same time, I agree with it. It's like there's, you know, I believe that books have as much life as an inanimate object can have, right?
Yeah.
And that they exist for a reason. Music exists for a reason. Art exists for a reason. But that reason is incomplete if they're not being appreciated, if the book isn't being read, if the music isn't being listened to. And so I saw that and I really thought like, you know, I have a collection of short stories coming out very soon that I self-published, and I managed to get a copy from the printer a couple days ago, and I was looking through it and I was like, this is pretty cool. I was like, but it's not real yet. Like, even though I'm holding the book in my hand, I'm like, this book ain't real yet. It's not going to be real until at least one person who either doesn't know me at all or hasn't read any of these stories in advance reads it and consumes it. And it doesn't matter if they love it or they hate it. That's when it becomes real, right? That's when this book comes alive, is the moment, you know, the moment somebody else takes it, the moment somebody else listens to a song, that song becomes alive in a way that it never was before. But it's also possible for a book or a movie or a song or a painting to die, right? And it can die a lonely death. And to me, I mean, I've seen some stuff and I've read some stuff that's like, oh my God, this is the worst thing. And I don't ever want to see it again. I don't ever want to listen to it again. You know, it's god awful. But does that mean that it deserves to die that lonely death where it's forgotten? And I don't think so, you know? So yeah, Jennifer, I was really pissed at you when I saw that this morning. I was like,
good job, Jen.
I'm not even going to do the show today. So I guess basically, like, in that spirit, those copies of Four Kids Walk Into a Bank that you lifted off the shelf and then put back, they needed you.
You know,
you abandoned them.
Damn. That makes so much sense.
I'm so
I'll tell you what, here's the thing. If I haven't found my copy by the time I go to Seattle, I will get one when I'll get another copy when I come back. That's what I will do. So, because no, seriously, like there's like that book inspires me so much that I mean, like Rosenberg would die if I said this in front of him. So I'll have to say this next time.
He's watching right now.
That book is like, it's like reading the Bible to me. It really is.
Listen, I don't disagree with you. I really don't. That's the book that made me want to write comics.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I always had an idea where I'm like, oh, I'd like to write comics. And, you know, when I was younger and in my early 20s and my late teens, I'm like, I want to write like Wonder Woman and I want to write Green Arrow. But that was the book that made me realize I want to tell my own stories in a unique and quirky way that sticks with somebody forever.
Okay. So because I'm going to have to take off in a few minutes, but I'm going to have to come back.
Yeah.
Because we're going to have to follow up this conversation.
Yes.
Because I had that feeling, right? And for me, there's a couple of titles that did this for me when I was still in high school. One was Mage by Matt Wagner. And the other one, nobody believes this, was ElfQuest.
Yeah, I could see it.
We're talking early 80s and it was like, and I had met Wendy and Richard Pini at a convention when I was probably 10 years old, and ElfQuest hadn't even come out yet, or maybe the first issue had just come out. But I remember seeing the stuff, and they were like, it was a convention in New York City, and they were like, hey, look at our indie thing that we're doing. And I'm like 10, and I was like, whatever. And then like 2-3 years later, I walked into, it was a bookstore, but it was also like a head shop, right? And so for people that are young and they don't know what a head shop is, it's a place where you can, before weed was legalized, where you could buy your water pipes and things like that.
Paraphernalia.
But this one bookstore, the reason I went in there was because I knew they had, somehow I'd heard that they had comics, but it was all indie stuff, and it was all underground, like Robert Crumb stuff. But I saw ElfQuest, and I was like, oh, I remember seeing this at a convention a couple of years ago. And I picked it up and was like, oh my God, like what is this? Because it was the first, really outside of the mainstream thing I'd ever read. And then Mage did it. And yeah, when next time I talk to Rosenberg, I'll tell him. But if that book made you want to write comics, like, bad news, you're going to have to write comics, right?
Yeah.
And so I'll have to, and we'll talk about this. And I've already talked about this with Jen a little bit, like that need. Some people need to transition from the fan and or critic to creator.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think that we're at a point now where it's like we need more of that. There's not enough fresh blood out there doing it. So yeah, I think you'll have to have me back on the show. We can talk about this. And because now I'm like, man, this time for me, this went by really quickly. And now I'm like, oh, I've got to put on some like pants or something, because I've got to go meet somebody this morning and talk about a project we're doing together. Yeah, no, and you know what? I'm going to have to convince Rosenberg to come on and yeah, so.
Yes, 100%. But thank you so much for being here. I can't wait till we talk again. Let's have waffles again sometime.
Yes.
So thank you so much, and I want everyone to go to your Kickstarter and check that out. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here.
And if it's not my Kickstarter, go get a copy of 4 Kids Walking to a Bank, because that is it. I'm like, I can't emphasize it enough. So if nothing else, we can geek out over that. So
absolutely.
Thank you so much for having me on. And I'm sorry I got a boogie early, but I promise I will come back.
Excellent.
Thank you so much for being here, David.
Harass you into coming back again.
Jen knows how to find you. She just has to tempt you with waffles or food or anything.
Yeah, exactly. So
let's hang out.
All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Thanks, David.
Thank you. But we're going to go ahead and thank you so much for the little transition there. So glad to have David on. But we do have, like our regular format. We wanted to go ahead and start off with that. But we've got a regular format. We haven't talked about news. We haven't talked about this week's comics. So
we're doing things a little different. Listen, it's all right to switch it up. It means we're getting bigger. We're getting better. Hopefully, David being a guest as our first guest, especially, we mentioned for those that are tuning in later, you met David at Rose City Comic Con last year and totally freaked out when he was like, oh, yeah, I know all about the channel. And then I freaked out when you proceeded to tell me. So the fact that our first comic guest, being somebody who is a fan and aware of the show is just, it's awesome. It's amazing. And hopefully it's something we can carry on into the future.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't have a ton of news, which is good because we're an hour into the show, but that's fine because it was David Walker. It's a light week for comics and we do what we want. But a big thing for news, everybody's talking about it and we're at the end of the week of talking about it. But listen,
here's
this thing happened on a Sunday night. We do our shows on Sunday mornings. We missed our slice of the pie and God damn it if I'm not going to have my slice of the pie.
I text you that night and I'm like, I forget what I was doing, but I ended up like going out later that day. So I think I ended up like going out for like drunk or something. I did. So here's the thing. I have cut back on like drinking. Like I used to drink a lot, whatever. I don't drink as much anymore. It was a hot day. I was walking a lot. I was not very hydrated, not food drated. I wasn't like full of food. And I went and I got like a drink and a half, and I was just tipsy.
And then I get a text of, Mars, I love you so damn much. And I'm like, it is 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Somebody is inebriated.
That is 24/7. I think I said, I'm like, I'm drunk. I love you. But there was, I think later that night, once I had sobered up, or like the next morning, I was like, what the fuck is going on with this Ultimate Fallout 4 convention?
Reprint, convention exclusive, acetate gate looking motherfucker. It's insane. So
I honestly, sorry I interrupted, but I honestly thought that I'm like, okay, this happened on a Sunday. By the time we talk about it on our show, it'll have blown over, and it didn't. It keeps evolving. It's evolved.
It mutates. It's like a mutation. So I'm not gonna talk about it a whole lot in terms of what happened, because at this point everybody has known what happened. But to give you the rundown, at C2E2 last weekend, a huge comic book convention, there was an online retailer by the name of Black Flag Comics that was essentially selling reprints of Ultimate Fallout number 4. It was a facsimile edition, which again means reprint. But I guess Black Flag Comics had way too much stock, and they didn't want to lose money on the stock, so they bought these ugly ass acetate covers, which are like a clear film that go over the comic. They added 2 additional staples. Yes, that is a big deal apparently in the comic book universe, is when there are 2 additional staples. But they were selling this comic, and they were featuring it as a convention exclusive, but everybody wanted this convention exclusive. And there was some rumors of people cutting lines, influencers getting their hands on 75 to 25 copies for this ugly ass cover that they were then reselling on the internet for an egregious amount of money. And I'm not here to talk about who cut in line, who did this, who did not. There's a million fucking channels talking about this, quite literally, about this issue. The only thing that I want to talk about is, when did it start? And I guess it's always been this way, but it makes it more clear than ever. When did it start becoming about how much money you can make off of something, or having the rarest thing in your collection, and stop being about the comics and the stories that you love and that got you a part of this community? It is so fucking annoying. I don't care if somebody bought 75 copies. I don't care if somebody bought 12 copies. There is no need for you to have, unless you are a bearded comic bro buying up all of the copies of Super Pro. That is the only fucking exception to this rule. There is no reason for a human being to own more than 3 copies of a comic book. And that's me being generous with being like, okay, you got 1 to read, 1 to put in a safe or in a safe place so it never gets hurt. Maybe 1 for you to display on a wall. There's no reason. It's too much.
I'm gonna buy all the copies of House of Secrets. No, I'm just kidding. I can only afford 1, and I can barely afford that one. But anyways, the way that people really wanted. Here's the thing: is that people really wanted this cover. What was it? Blackbird Comics did this exclusive where they put the acetate cover over the facsimile of Ultimate Fallout 4, which is the first appearance of Miles Morales. And so I think people really wanted it. And it was like CGC graded, right? So CGC is,
and that in itself is a whole nother controversy.
And that's a whole nother thing. So like, I think the thing is that, but I would assume most people would know that they're waiting in line and they know what they're getting out of this book. They would know that they're getting this Blackbird comic exclusive, CGC graded, facsimile,
ugly ass acetate cover.
You know what you're getting when you, like, I assume these people knew what they were getting when they waited in line. I think the thing is that people started getting mad when they knew someone else got to cut them in line and get more copies, which prevented them from getting copies
and selling and
selling. And the person who did this supposed cutting was like, well, I'm only saving 12 copies for myself. They
doubled down on everything.
I'm grabbing 200 copies so I can give them to other people. But like my thing is like this is how it's been for other things. Like all of a sudden people are mad because they got cut in
because
line.
it's happening. Yeah, because it's happening to them. That's why they're getting mad.
Yeah.
Whereas you have us two assholes that are mad because it just keeps happening. Because we were talking backstage, and it seems like the comic book community, being on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, podcasting, you name it, feels like there has always been two separate sides of that fence, right? So you have people who, like us, we love comics. We love reading comics. We love sharing our opinions about the comics we read. And most importantly, we love getting other people into comics and helping them find the stories that they love. And then you have the other side of people that, and maybe it's a third field, but I feel like we're going to just mush them all together. These are the people that are trying to make the most money. They're trying to have the most important thing in their, or the most expensive thing in their collection. I have 4 copies of X-Men #1, and one of them is signed by Stan Lee. But I can tell you right now, I've never actually read an X-Men comic and can't even tell you the members of the X-Men. And
They could probably tell you like, oh, this Hulk 180 is the real first. I mean, I'm totally that person, but like they can tell you about like the first appearances of characters and things like that. But I feel like they can't tell you about the stories.
And it's frustrating. And I know, and I see people, there's a lot of big profile people. I'm not going to name any names because that's not, I could be petty. You want me to be petty? DM me. We can be petty for real.
Yeah.
I'm not going to go naming people, but there are people deleting tweets talking about, oh, you got to do what you got to do to make your money. That, oh, why are people mad? Because this happens in every hobby collecting thing, whether it's toys, DVDs, VHSs, albums, baseball cards. It happens in everything. But here's my question. Why? Why does it have to happen? Because it's people like you who keep letting it happen. Not you.
Yeah.
You're an angel and you could never do anything wrong.
Thank you. Even Satan was an angel. But
it's frustrating.
It is. It's frustrating. And I feel like not necessarily like silly, but I'm like, why do I feel so invested in this story?
I am. It's like every time something new comes out, I'm like, did you know what happened with this?
Like, it's interesting to see, and I'm just like, y'all created your own problem. Like, y'all create this industry where it's like there's a scarcity in this product, and I have to have it. So I'm willing to spend lots of money to say I'm an owner of something. And then when you get like, and these people and these resellers on like Whatnot who are like hyping up books that are like stupid, I don't know.
No, it's the truth. And to make matters worse, Black Flag Comics, who is the online retailer responsible for Acetate Gate, Facsimile #4, Ultimate Fallout, whatever we're calling it, they were scheduled to show up at Boston Comic-Con Fan Expo this weekend. So they did show up. You know, they were scheduled. They had their banners, their tables.
There were lots of calls for them to the
leave.
convention
to push them out, to not do it. But they did show up, you know, and their banners were there, and their signage was there, and their tablecloths was there. But all that was there were lollipops. It's like they didn't show up.
They were convention-exclusive lollipops.
They were convention-exclusive lollipops. Get them, sell them on Whatnot for $10,000 and, you know, buy yourself a Hulk 181 or whatever the hell it is. However, to make matters worse, they were out in the convention parking lot dealing drugs like a fucking speakeasy, where they were texting certain people and certain influencers being like, hey, if you come meet us at this specific location at this specific time, you can buy this many copies. And it's like, so you know what you did was wrong. This is what I love. It's like you are admitting that what you did was wrong. And so you're doing back alley deals because you would rather still make your money than actually confront the people that you wronged, because you know damn well there were going to be people that showed up and was like, hey, fuck you.
Yeah.
And they didn't know how to deal with it.
I think that's so true. I think that what it was is that they got called out for doing something, which, to be fair, I think not necessarily happens a lot, but it does happen. And it's the industry.
You have to know how to deal with it, though. That's part of having a platform, is knowing how to deal with bad press and to understand how people, you know, if people call you out, how to respond in a respectful, professional, and adult manner. And obviously Black Flag has not. But that's all I'm talking about with Black Flag. It's too much. It's funny. It's weird. I'm sure something else will happen by the end of day. Part of me wants it to just be over, but at the same time, I'm like you, where I'm like, what else happened today with the Black Flag acetate gate? It's a mess. It's a lot. And that was pretty much the only thing that happened in comic books this week.
I'm glad that it happened. So we had news to talk about. I mean, the only other news that I heard about was that did Ezra Miller finally, like, there were warrants out for their arrest, and did they actually get arrested?
I could not
apparently tell you. WB had them on set to do reshoots, and
which is funny to me.
And anyways,
like, you had him and you could have, again, that's a whole nother conversation.
Maybe these two stories need to merge, and it needs to be Ezra Miller doing a Black Flag acetate.
The spokesperson for Black Flag.
Yes, there we go.
Oh my goodness. It's too much. But that's all the news we have. But before we jump into our little weekly reviews, there is kind of a big announcement that I want to make. So earlier in the week, we launched the Casually Comics Patreon. So for those of you that know, we launched YouTube memberships last November to coincide with our 1-year anniversary. And it was great. So many people were excited for it. We had so many people joining, super chats, all of this and that. And then YouTube apparently is just really shitty with actually paying out people. And
it ends up like it's not just YouTube. It has to be like AdSense, and it can't just be like
and Google. And apparently it does not work very well. YouTube really only works if you have one creator. You know, if you're like a Markiplier or Scott Kramer, I'm naming people that you probably don't know about, but these are the people that I watch in my spare time. It's fine. It's whatever. So we decided to launch Patreon. It launched on Wednesday. You can find the link to it down below. We have multiple tiers. Of course, you have like our normal, just a tip jar tier. You have one that gets you fun behind the scenes and a newsletter where you can see all the books that we're excited about before we actually talk about them. So that way, you know what to pick up at your local comic book shop. And then of course, we have discounts for our merchandise store and credits for all of our shows. So we just want to thank you guys. We've been getting a lot of questions about, oh, why did my membership turn off? And it's been a long process. And finally, I decided to wave the white flag at YouTube and be like, fuck it. We're gonna come up with an alternative solution. So to anybody who has supported us in the past, thank you. To anybody who is considering or is going to support us in the future, thank you. You guys help us get bigger and greater and better. And I'm really awkward at this kind of shit. So can we just talk about comics now?
Let's talk about comics.
Let's talk about comics now.
That's what we're here to do, is we are here to talk about comics. Comic book and comic book accessories. So, chat, we want to know what you want to hear, because we've got Marvel, we've got DC, we've got indie. What do you want to hear us talk about first this week?
I'm going to give you a fair warning. There was like nothing for DC this week.
There was 2 or 3 books. There were 2 or 3. I mean, that's kind of where DC
is. I'm going to be honest with you. It was a very slow week for comics this week. There were a couple number ones here and there, but it was fairly lame. Yeah. Lame. It's fine. So anyway, everybody should read 4 Kids Walk Into a Bank, because it's probably the greatest comic book. Just hearing David what was that? Hearing David kind of validated. It's like, oh, somebody else thinks that this is the greatest book too. I'm not just a big dum-dum.
I could hear you I was silently screaming, like vibrating and being like, what?
I'm going to reread it again for like the 50th time. Listen, I have forced everybody to read this book. It is the best. Remember when I thought Black Mask was going to be like the Volt Comics of publishing, and then it just tanked, and then it came back, and then it tanked again, and then it did it again and again, and it's whatever.
I think that like every like couple of months, I'm like, oh, Black Mask.
Black Mask is still publishing.
So we've got a lot of votes for indies, or I think 2 indies, 2 DCs. So we need a tiebreaker.
We need a tiebreaker. My tiebreaker is 4 Kids Walk Into... No, I'm just kidding. I'll stop.
Yeah,
I'll stop. But seriously, if you guys want just good storytelling, beats that hit, emotional moments that absolutely punch. If you like Stranger Things, read this goddamn book.
Yeah?
Yeah. If you like Paper Girls, read this book.
Oh dang. So we got another DC, but then we got another indie. Y'all, listen. I'm gonna start off Marvel.
Okay, let's start Marvel then. Nobody votes Marvel, so you all get Marvel.
Well, yeah, let's kind of blow. Let's. Nobody voted for Marvel, so we're like, let's
Marvel.
do.
So we're gonna talk Marvel. There was actually a Marvel book that came out this week that I really, 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 really liked, and almost tied for my book of the week. I was really surprised.
Okay.
I was really surprised.
I know what book this.
You know what book it is.
I do.
So, it's been a fucking year, y'all. It's been over a year, but we finally did it. We finally got Predator #1 from Marvel. So we talked about this last year when they bought the rights to Aliens and they released Aliens comic. But before they did that, they were doing all these cool little variant covers with all the Marvel characters. And then they released like Predator variants with all the Marvel characters. And I'm like, they probably bought the rights to Predator. So they're going to fucking do a Predator comic. And then it got announced and I was like, oh shit, I was fucking right. And then a year went by and it never came out. And Azurius Tiger beats me to it that I feel like they did wait for it to coincide with Prey, which is ironic.
I'm glad they did.
I'm kind of glad they did too, because I actually just I just watched Prey on Friday. If you have not watched this movie, please watch it. You don't even have to watch a single Predator fucking movie. You don't got to know shit about the Predator other than he goes click, 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 click. But that movie was good. And if you like that movie, I think you're going to like this comic, because I'm a huge fan right now of this genre of women beating the shit out of the Predator. I really fucking like this new genre we're in. So, the new Predator comic from Marvel Comics introduces us to this character who is hunting the Predators, because we find out through some really great backstory that she watched her mother, father, an entire science exploration team, which is essentially her family, be killed by this one Predator. However, she knows which Predator it is. And is that their names? Are they just called Predators? Do they have a species names like the Xenomorph? I don't know enough about Predator.
Knew more about it, because I know that you would know, but
I've never seen a Predator movie other than Prey, so I'm a fake fan.
Oh, dang. Okay.
I'm a fake fan. I've never seen one, but I could quote the Predator. It's funny. It's whatever. It's cool. But, so she's basically, we get this big time jump where she's an adult now and she's literally hopping from planet to planet to find and kill this Predator that killed her family. And she's killing other Predators along the way. And I'm like, I'm here for this fucking revenge story that is engaging and kind of drops us right in the middle, because I was fully expecting this to be another military story. They're on a planet, there's something hunting them. They find out it's a Predator and it's like everything we've seen before. But this, I like this. This is fun.
And I definitely have to say, like, I had more fun with this book than I did the Alien book. And I would almost expect the opposite. Like, the
Alien book was that generic military. We're dropped into a situation. The Xenomorph is chasing us, which is sad, because it's like I really wanted a Xenomorph book that was more horror-based, survival feeling, kind of creepy, scary in the night. And then this book, you would expect, of course, action, but I didn't expect to get revenge from it too, and that works. Also, Bizarro Fett coming in with, I'm not going to try to pronounce it, but thank you. I think we're just going to keep going with the Predators.
The Predators. I don't know too much about Predator, so I couldn't necessarily tell you. I know that I am really excited for the Prey movie, and the night it came out, it was last Thursday. I stayed up and I watched the first 20 minutes, had to fall asleep. Like, I just couldn't do it. Wasn't feeling great. And then the next day, Sandman came out and I watched the entire first season basically in one day, and then tried to go back again to try to watch it. Couldn't focus. Tried to watch it again last night. Also couldn't focus. And I don't know what's wrong with me, because this movie just looks so fun. I love the characters. But the main takeaway, I know this is so stupid, and we're talking about the Prey movie and we're talking about the Predator comic book. So the Prey movie is in the year 1717.
Mm-hmm.
which is the only thing that I could think about when I rewatched it last night and noticed that it said that it was specifically the year 1717, is that's the same year that Our Flag Means Death is in. So I know the two are like, they're happening simultaneously. Like maybe Blackbeard is gonna get, maybe that'll be
I love that. I fucking love that.
It's just gonna be them running away from the Predator.
I fucking love that. That's great.
The Kraken. The Kraken was really just a predator. Anyways, yes.
It's a great listen for somebody who's never really experienced a Predator between Prey and Predator #1 from Marvel. It's a great fucking Predator experience, and I would like to think that those people that are fans of the Predator and have been fans of the Predator for a long time, I hope that you guys feel like you guys are eating fucking good, because I'm eating fucking good and I just joined the fandom.
Okay. I love it. Definitely excited. Like this one's going to be on my pull list for sure.
Yeah, I'm definitely want to read issue 2, because I think that it could be exciting, and I think that it's got more of an indie feel to it than like your average Predator adaptation. So, what else did you read from Marvel?
What else did I read from Marvel? So let me see here. I read, there were 2 books. I'm just gonna kind of like talk about them at the same time because I loved them, but I'm also, so Marvel is doing this thing where they're doing this weird team up and they're putting them as issue #1s, which is kind of confusing. So I read Miss Marvel and Wolverine, and then I also read Avengers and Moon Girl. So like, I really liked these books. I really liked Miss Marvel and Wolverine. Like that was a fun combination.
It was so good. Like
it reminds me of the like Jubilee years with where it was like Lone Wolf Cub with Wolverine and
I just like the idea that it was like the most fun I've had with an X-Men comic since Jonathan Hickman took over. But you know,
yeah. But I also do wish, because this is like issue 3 or 4 of like Moon Girl going around trying to find Devil Dinosaur. So parts of me, I was like, wait, did that happen in an issue that I missed? So I missed out on like the previous issue, I think, of the Moon Girl one, but I think this was the first one for Miss Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah.
It's frustrating because I read both of these as well, and I definitely think that the Ms. Marvel one is the stronger one. And if I'm being honest, I will definitely read, I think the next one is Ms. Marvel and Moon Knight, which, first of all, these team ups are some of the most ridiculous fucking team ups. You're throwing Kamala with like the most unexpected heroes. Like I'm fully expecting issue 3 to be, you know, Ms. Marvel and Blade. Like something that fucking ridiculous.
Please and thank you.
I love that. But it's frustrating because it feels like we're doing the same thing that we are seeing with fucking Demon Days, where you have this extremely marketable book, especially to a younger and all ages audience. You're featuring 2 very fantastic characters, Ms. Marvel and Moon Girl, respectively. 2 characters that personally I feel like don't get enough love from Marvel to begin with. Neither have their own ongoing series right now, but you're just one-shotting them. But at the same time, it's a connecting story, and it's really fucking frustrating because if you had just labeled these as 1, 2, 3, 4, you know, call it Moon Girl team ups or Moon Girl in search of Devil Dinosaur or Ms. Marvel and the Fantastic team up, you know, it's like something just silly and generic. Also, JD Barry coming in saying that Ms. Marvel and Venom is the 3rd, and yeah, that fits this unsensible lineup that we got going on.
It's great, and
I love it.
Like you said, this should be an accessible book for new readers who want to either get introduced to the character, introduced to the Marvel world, and they're making it hard to be accessible, which really sucks because it could be just a really great fun series, and it is, but yeah.
But we're stuck behind this #1 paywall, essentially, is what it feels like.
Yeah.
So.
The only other, so I got a couple of other Marvel books. I didn't read all of them. I went through Giant Size Gwen Stacy, and it was all right, but I didn't love it. I like her as like so I love boring. I love
like, who wants to read a whole book about boring ass Gwen Stacy that's not a spider?
The people who have, I think Spider-Man fans, like there are people who like go to the comic book shop, pick up 2 comics, and it's like Spider-Man. I wasn't.
It just seems so boring to me.
Yeah. I didn't love it. I wanted to. I really wanted to get into it, but I couldn't. You didn't read this one then?
No, I did not, because I'm trying to do this thing where, yeah, I'll read things if they're a new number 1, but if I know I'm going to hate it from the get-go,
yeah,
I'm not going to subject myself to it, because what's the point?
I love subjecting myself to bullshit, especially to be able to talk about the bullshit. I'm not too big of a fan of Nauk. I don't know how to pronounce. I'm not a big fan of their art, Todd Nauk. So the art wasn't my favorite.
No.
But I'm very proud because this is a $9.99 book. Like, it's a thick book. And I'm really proud of myself for only getting the A cover, because there were like 10 different covers that I kind of wanted. And I'm really glad I didn't get any of them.
I am proud of you. If no one else is proud of you, I am proud of you. The only other Marvel book that I read, and I'm going to be honest, I'm still fucking reading it. Punisher number 5 came out this week. I believe there's Punisher number 5.
Oh, yeah.
I believe there's only one more book until it's the end of the arc. I've really been liking this iteration of Punisher. You know, he's in Japan. He's working with the Hand. That kind of rhymed a little, but not really. The Hand has given him back Maria, and so Maria is kind of struggling because she's like, I'm alive again, but where are my children?
Where are the kids?
But I also really like that this book, we're getting to see a lot of backstory to the Punisher, more so than just, I was a Marine and I killed people. We're getting to see who Frank Castle really is. You know, in previous issues, we saw how he witnessed the murder of a woman and nobody stopped and nobody cared. So he then tracked down the man and had revenge, even at the age of 12. Now it's like he's a young, angsty fucking teenager. He meets this nerdy kid who he's really close with, who he saved from bullying. But then he meets Maria, and his focus kind of shifts from his friend over to Maria. And we get to see kind of how the events of that have affected his life. And I really like these flashbacks because, especially in the illustrations, it feels like an indie book. Yeah. And part of me is like, I really wish that the whole book was like this. Like, I kind of would not mind like a weird indie Frank Castle, like Black Label book that doesn't really tie into the universe, but gives us a callback to the character we know.
What if they did like a Black, White, and Blood for the Punisher?
Oh, it's going to happen. At this point, I'm surprised it hasn't.
Yeah. That would be pretty cool, because then I think that getting those artists that don't traditionally get a whole ass book from Marvel would be able to do some work.
Yeah.
Well, I've got a couple. I mean, like, I bought a couple others. Like, I got Ghost Rider. I haven't read it yet, so the artwork looks pretty cool now.
I looked through it. I flipped through it. I'm like, oh, this looks neat. It's Benjamin Percy. Benjamin Percy's doing a lot at Marvel right now. Ever since he abandoned DC, it's fine. I forgive you. But Ghost Rider's never been a character. You would think, you know, a man that collects souls on a motorcycle with a flaming skull, like, that reads like edgy goth GF vibes for me, and it just doesn't. But I'm like, it's whatever.
So that's kind of the end of the Marvel portion. I know we were going back between like indie and DC. I know it was like tied, and then Jarrell came in and said indie. So I don't know if indie's next or if you want to do Marvel.
We can talk about indie. We've been saving indie for the end for the past couple weeks, so I wouldn't mind switching it up a little bit. There was a couple new number 1s that came out, but I think I want to talk about some of the books that, you know, weren't new number 1s that came out this week. So There's Something Wrong with Patrick Todd. Number 2 came out from Aftershock Comics. I really, really like this book. I really, really liked issue 1, and I didn't think I was going to. If you've read We Could Never Go Home, which is a Matthew Rosenberg book, we're just talking about Matthew Rosenberg this week. It has a very like We Could Never Go Home type vibe, where it's this young kid who's on the run. He's got these superpowers where he can control people and make them do what he wants, but he only uses his power against criminals to rob banks because he's taking care of his mother, who is in a sort of comatose state, and he's trying to provide the best care for her, but of course he's a kid. And this issue switches things up a bit because now we have this like villain-esque character that is claiming to be his father. And he's kind of a psychopath, and he cuts off the heads of people, and he's got his own powers, I believe, that haven't really been revealed. And it's just made me really curious about how the rest of this book is going to go.
You raved about issue 1. And so I'm like, I think like that week, I'm like, okay, I think final order cutoff is for issue 2. Let me go ahead and pre-order issue 2. So I bought it, but I didn't get issue 1. So I haven't read this one yet. But like, I immediately do get those, like you said.
That we can never go home vibe. It's good. Yeah. It's fun. It's a kid on the run with superpowers.
It's that kid on the run genre. Is that a genre? It's a genre.
The runaway teen. The runaway teen genre.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I am excited to finally, hopefully, get my hands on issue number 1. Let me see what else. Any other books that weren't necessarily issue 1?
Other non-number 1s, we finally got to see 8 Billion Genies number 4 from Image Comics. This book is literally like insane. So apparently all 4 issues have sold out, going to second printing. You can't even get your hands on the first printings anymore, which is insane to me because I'm wishing I had picked up some of them. It's crazy that this book has blown up the way it has. And, it feels like in 2019 in 2020 we had Something That's Killing the Children. Or no, I'm sorry, 2019 we had Something That's Killing the Children. 2020 we had We Live. 2021 we had Stray Dogs. It feels like 2022 belongs to 8 Billion Genies. It really does.
I agree. And it's funny because earlier this year, Image Comics was like, we are not doing second printings.
Yeah, they did say that, didn't they?
And I think that they were like, well, we'll still maybe do variants and things like that, but we're not going to do second printings. Well, they lied because they have done second printings of basically every single issue, even issue like 3. Has gotten second printings. But this story is so unique, and I like this story better than I like curse words.
I didn't care for curse words.
So it's 8 Billion Genies, basically about 8 billion people on the planet. All of a sudden, all of them get a genie who grants them a one wish. And some of these wishes have become stupid. Some of them are really smart. The first book was the first, 8 minutes?
Mm-hmm.
Or 8 hours?
I think it was the first 8 minutes, 8 hours, 8 days, 8 weeks. And
8 weeks was the 4th one.
8 weeks was the 4th one. So the next one's going to be the 8 months. And you're right. So this book, I'm not going to lie, it started off a little slow for me in terms of the 4th issue because I was worried it was going to get throttled down into another superhero book. Because at the end of issue 3, it's revealed that our main character, who's a young boy, he basically wishes for the powers to protect his parents. And we spend a lot of time, the first couple pages learning, and experiencing this through his eyes, which is cute. But I'm like, I don't need another superhero book. It felt very much like We Live to me.
Yeah.
And then it kind of shifts back into that. All right, we're going to look at the consequences of these wishes. How are people interacting with the world? Let's look at the outrageousness of some of these wishes. And we learned some really heartbreaking moments. But then there's also a huge twist, which I'm not going to reveal. There is a huge fucking twist about this book that kind of changes everything. And knowing that we're getting these jumps, and I'm not a fan of time jumps at all. I think time jumps and time skips are a poor way of writing literature, and to me signals bad writing because it's like you don't know what to do between point A and point B. Yeah. But doing it where it's the 8 hours, 8 days, 8 weeks, 8 months, it kind of like sets stakes. Yeah. Because one of the characters is pregnant. So obviously 8 months later, she's going to have the baby. Maybe not. Who knows? But there's going to be a lot that's going to happen between then and now. And I'm like, this world is so massive and it's so unexpected. Like anything could happen.
Like, for instance, in this book, in the bar where this is set in is safe from everything else. And we find out why the bar is safe, which is really cool. I really liked that. But someone mentions that in the outside, they're like people had wished to become kaiju. So there's like these big Godzillas walking around.
Yeah.
And so like you're right, in 8 months' time, where is this world going to go? Like it kind of touches on the people, the immediate effects that we saw from this world were people who didn't think about their wishes.
Yeah.
But then in 8 weeks' time, 8 months' time, we're dealing with the people who were methodical. And as it turns out, those methodical people are probably going to be the psychopaths. And now we've got to deal with them. So, like, this book is, I'm really, and I think it's 8 issues.
That's 8 issues.
So we're halfway through. So it'll be 8 months, 8 years.
We did this last time. 8 decades, 8 centuries.
We'll see.
Book, it's very unpredictable. We'll say that. I can kind of gauge where a story is going to kind of go. This, because there are so many variables, you can't figure it out, and that's what's great about it.
Like the next, so like in this, like I said, it started off with like superheroes, but then it went back to like the personal stuff with the people at the bar, and then like now it's going to like, hey, there's like kaiju roaming the earth, and there's Godzillas and stuff. So like next issue, it could literally be like there's vampires, or there's
we've
like,
already seen vampires at this point.
Yeah, you know, there's interspace travel or universes. So
giant cats.
There could be the next issue could get really wacky, and that's what I'm really excited for. So really great 4th issue. Other than like, you know, non-number ones, there was a book that finished, and that is issue 5 of Season of the Bruja, which is a really great like teen story about like magic, intergenerational magical abilities, kind of like what you owe to your family. The author, Aaron Duran, they are local. They came into Books with Pictures and signed a whole bunch of copies. So I got issue 5 signed. And this is a really great book. There's a lot of love in this book, which I like. The conversations that are have between the main character and her grandmother. It's beautiful. I cried. So anyways, hopefully Oni does survive long enough to be able
That is Oni, that's right.
So hopefully they're, you know, around long enough to print like a whole ass copy of this, because I really want a collected edition. Another book that I got issue 2 of, which was just fun. It's Just Fun by Behemoth Space Lady.
I was hoping you got it.
I love this book. I don't want to call it dumb, because it's not dumb, but it's just like, it's silly.
It's dumb fun.
I watched this video, and it was like, snails use 2 brain cells and to make all their decisions. So just don't even worry. Just let 2 brain cells autopilot you. And that's how I feel reading this, is like, this is my 2 brain cell book, and I love it so much.
Love it.
I love it. It's also revealed in the back that the creator's name is actually Ashley, but they go by Icky. So anyways.
Fun stuff.
Yeah, it was good. The artwork is just, it's kind of basic, but
I love simple artwork like that. Like, I think simple artwork is sometimes my favorite in comics.
Yeah.
Because it gives me time to slow down and enjoy the story.
I've got 2 other.
What else you got?
Starhenge. The first issue was so confusing, but I love the artwork. I'm like, I'm still just going to get issue 2. Still confused. I think this is where I cut it off. I really wanted to love it, but I'm so confused. It tells you a lot more things. There's like even like maps and stuff like that. It gives you some of the lore. Still confused. Too much. This was a 3 brain cell book, and I needed 2 brain cell books. And then the other one that I got was Tiger's Tongue, issue number 2. Still love it.
That did come out. Yeah.
Issue 2, just as great as the first one. Kind of in the same way where we are learning about this like intergenerational, like kind of magic stuff. That's what's going on here. I definitely keep feeling those Sarah and the Royal Stars vibes, along with Miranda.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Really, really fun book. So everything else I got is in issue number 1.
Yeah, issue number 1. So I know there's a book that you want to talk about that you just absolutely love this week and was your favorite book you've ever read from your favorite writer you've ever read.
Okay.
You love it so much you bought 3 copies.
I did. Don't judge me. So I did. I bought Love Everlasting, and so here's the thing: is that it's Tom King, and I don't. It may have the appearance. It may sound like that I hate Tom King. I don't hate Tom King. I really do enjoy some of his writing, but Tom King can't write a linear fucking story to save his life. I don't know if that's on purpose. I don't know if it's like a very self-aware thing where it's like, I am not going to write a story A to B to C to D.
Yeah.
Every story that he has ever written is like flashback, flash forward, flashback, not told.
Split the timeline.
Yeah, and that's what this one isn't necessarily one story told, but it is because it's like parallel universes, different, but it's like the same story being told over and over and over again.
It's rough. This is one of those. We actually have another book on this list that's similar to it, but this is part of that trend of Substack first and then print it later. So we've seen that, at Image specifically. We've seen it with Chip Zdarsky's Public Domain. We're seeing it with Thompson's Love Everlasting. We're seeing it over at IDW with Scott Snyder and Wildfire. And something about that rubs me the wrong way. We were talking about it backstage with I'm totally okay with you reprinting stories, and there's a book on this list that was a Kickstarter first and is now being released in issues. I'm totally okay with you reprinting stuff like the digital onlys and stuff like that, because then I get to read it, especially because I don't like doing digital, but I'm forced to sometimes. But I don't like you releasing it issue by issue. If that's the case, just release it as a trade, to which you kind of told me that.
From what I understand, is that if you go to a publisher like Image, they will they will charge a fee to basically like print your book. Like it's an Image, it's a creator owned book, and they're going to kind of like charge you to print your book there, right? And if you can come up with that fee, I guess it's like several $1,000s. If you come up with that fee for them to print your book, they'll do it as long as they, accept the pitch. And then creators get more money from the single issues than they do collected editions. Mm-hmm. So it's worthwhile to creators to publish single issue by single issue because they do get more money. And if they can do Kickstarter, make enough money to pay that fee to Image, then ultimately more money in their pocket. You know how I feel about this. If creators can get more money, please do. And as much as I do also feel like if you print it on Substack and then you go to Kickstarter and then you go to like a single issue, part of me is like, I don't know. I don't know if I love that.
It's weird.
It is weird.
It's weird.
Your money though.
It's that conversation again of, do we break the tradition of single issues and just go straight to OGNs and graphic novels, but then we lose variants and creators getting paid more? And it's a lot to unpack.
That's something that only comic shops are selling single issues. So, I mean, Amazon, I think, kind of technically does, but
not in the way that comic shops do.
Yeah, exactly. But
Love Everlasting is a book about love, everlasting, and jumping through time and space and other people. Well, not space, but I'm sure maybe space and other people.
Yeah.
And that's fine and dandy. I'm totally okay. Listen, I'm going to tell y'all a secret. I come on as this cool, tough girl that likes really tough things. I'm a fucking hopeless, sappy fucking romantic whose favorite 2 movies are Pride and Prejudice and Howl's Moving Castle, okay? I'm a fucking sap. I was so excited for this goddamn book. I love love. I love Tom King writing romance. I'm here for it. why is your book about love and meeting people throughout time and space and whatever? Why is it fucking white and why is it straight?
It feels like
It's boring, Tom King.
it does. It feels boring and it feels very safe. And I really think that, like I said, one of the stories features a young girl, and she's so hopeless in love with her suitor, and she really wants her dad's permission to date him, and he won't let her date this guy. And then all of a sudden she's like, oh, but he's so and so's son.
He's
Oh,
no
it's so
longer
and
a
so's
dirty
son.
hippie, but he's actually rich.
Oh, that family's got money. Sure, you can date him. And like, that's literally the story. And
That's
I'm
the
like,
plot.
could we, you know,
And the other plot was like her best friend is like seeing somebody, or her best friend / roommate is seeing somebody. The best friend gets her a job with the person that she's seeing, and she's falling in love with him. But oh no, I can't because my roommate's in love with him. But JK, my roommate's marrying somebody else now, so I could totally just go for it, like guns a blazing. And it's like, I don't make it make sense.
I
Straight
expected
people, are you okay?
straight people, are you okay? Like, it feels like I needed more from it. I needed this to put the,
I wanted it to
like,
be weirder.
I want it to be weirder. I want it, especially when you can tell great stories. And I'm not necessarily saying that like Tom King can't tell a great story, but I expected more. And this just felt like, I don't know.
It felt safe.
I do have to say, I love Elsa Charretier.
Charcuterie.
I don't know how to pronounce her last name, and I apologize. It's
like
French.
Tiny Onion. It's Elsa Charcuterie.
So the artwork is beautiful. I really love it, but I also I needed more from the writing. I needed more from the stories. Am I going to go ahead and pick up issue 2? Probably, and I'll probably get all the dumb bitch variant covers for sure.
But that wasn't the only number one from Image Comics. There was another number one, and we were talking about reprints and things like that. This is technically a reprint. So The Deadliest Bouquet came out this week from Erica Schulz, and this book was kickstarted a couple of years ago, if I'm not mistaken, and now it's being given to Image to publish. And I wanted to love this book. I really wanted to love this book. So it's about this family. And this family is like really weird and cryptic and creepy. And they are like, I don't know if they're adopted, but their mother is like a florist. And all of these girls are named after flowers. And like, listen, I'm here for that. That's cool. That's weird. We get like some fucking insight that the mother killed her husband and then forced the children to bury him in the backyard, which I'm like, all right, this is kind of creepy, kooky, crazy that I'm here for in my comic books. And then the mom dies. So now it's like a whodunit type thing, and it brings the family back together. And I'm like, this literally has a fucking like laundry list of things that would make it great. The art is beautiful, but the dialogue in this book weighs it down.
It does. And I feel like I can hear the different characters, right? Like, this could easily be a book where all the characters feel very similar. They do feel very like separate. I kind of understand what each one of them
have separate
wants.
Identities.
Yeah, but there's one character in particular who comes across as this like
she's the edgy sister.
She's the edgy sister, but they like introduce her by like, so anyways, the cops come in and are like investigating, and she goes up to a female presenting cop, and is like, oh, bring the handcuffs next time, or keep as something like that.
And it's like, ma'am, you were talking to a cop, so that's minus 10 points to you. You're hitting on a cop. Second of all, ma'am, your mother is dead in the next room. And you're hitting on the cop that is questioning you for possibly being involved with her murder. Your mom has died and you are not grieving.
So it didn't feel like believable, and I really hope that that's not the only character trait that I remember.
But it's a shame because it happens again. We see it happen later on in the story where this character, I guess, is trying to get information. Like she starts her own little like detective search to figure out who killed my mom. And we see her in a bar and she has to like fake, liking, which I mean, I've done before in a bar too, but she's got to fake liking some men for some intel. Granted, I never did it for intel. I did it for drinks, but it's fine. It's whatever. You do what you got to do in this economy.
Yeah.
But she like makes a comment to the bartender of like, I hope you're okay with sloppy seconds. And I had to like pause because I'm like, first of all, what year are we fucking in that we're talking like this? It felt very 90s cheesecake exploitative dialogue. But then I had to also think that this is being written by a woman.
It felt like it was. It did feel like
it was written by. It felt like it was written by Brian Azzarello.
Oh my god, it is. It totally has Brian Azzarello vibes. Ew, But here, I liked the plot and the premise enough where I understand what's going on. So I'm like, maybe I could pick up issue 2. But I think that like maybe this is happening because that character is going to get a redemption arc, or we're going to figure out like maybe why she's.
That's not how you write a female character. As a female, like it's just I felt scummy while reading it. Like I legitimately felt scummy, but I'm so intrigued by the plot and the characters and what is going on. And again, the art is fantastic, but there's something that leaves a foul taste in my mouth about this book. And I'm not gonna lie. Personally, I've never been a fan of Erica Schulz's writing. They did Bylines and Blood over in Aftershock. They've also done their other creator-owned series, M3, which was a big hit for them. But it feels like sometimes you just don't get people's writing. I'm looking right at Jonathan Hickman. Sometimes it's just not for you. But this makes me wonder, like, who is it for then if it's not for me?
Yeah.
I don't know. I felt weird about it. Anybody else who has read the book, I'm curious on your thoughts because I was really excited for this book. It looks cute as shit. I wanted more from it, and I didn't get it. Am I going to read issue 2?
Sure.
It's in my Image Press kit. Yes, I will read it Deadliest Bouquet number 2.
We'll see, how much there is to read that week.
Oh, don't say it like that.
Oh, there was number 1 that I liked, but you absolutely loved.
My book of the week.
What book was that?
My book of the week from Aftershock Comics, Samurai Doggy. Listen, I have one bad thing to say about this book. Ready? I'm going to say it right off the back. My one bad thing about this book is why is it not called Samurai Doggo? Why is it called Samurai Doggy? Can we just call it? I'm calling it Samurai Doggo. It's fine. So this, how do I fucking talk about this book without just like, we've experienced books like this on this channel before where it's like I just want to gush and like throw up and be like, I just really love this book and it was really fun. I had a really fucking good time. That's how I feel about this book. So this to me, it reminds me of like why I love Aftershock Comics, because they put out weird shit like this, and it feels like recently they've gotten very formulaic with the stuff that they're publishing, and this is just weird and I love it. Right off the bat, if you liked books like Good Boy, pick this book up. This feels like Good Boy, but finally like fully realized. Like Good Boy just took the trope of what if John Wick was the dog and it was the dog that died, whereas this is like, okay, we're gonna take an anthropomorphic dog, throw him in this anthropomorphic like city, and we're gonna run with it. And it feels like a really fun anime that I've never gotten to fucking watch. And now I want an anime just fucking like this. So the story starts off with this dog, and he goes and talks about how somebody showed up, killed his mother, took away his eyesight because he fought back, and kidnapped his brothers and sisters. So now he is hunting for the person that kidnapped his brothers and sisters. And he won't stop. And it's just, the city that he's in is so fucking cool and weird. The pages are gorgeous. You get these really cool splash pages. Like, I'm fully invested into this story. It reminds me of, I don't know if you've ever watched like Samurai Champloo. Yeah. It reminds me of like a Samurai Champloo type story where I'm just really invested into this character and what happens to them, even though I just met them. I'm having a lot of fun with this book, and oh man, I just want more people to read this one because it feels like nobody talked. So many people talked about Love Everlasting this week. I didn't see a single fucking person talk about Samurai Doggo Good Boy.
I feel like I saw several people saying that this was their book of the week.
So good. Definitely my book of the week. Like,
it also, it has bao buns, and I'm like, I'm going to go get bao buns today because those look really good.
Yeah, I want bao buns. Fuck. I just ate the last ones that were in my freezer. Maybe I'll run over to Trader Joe's and buy some bao buns.
Ooh, they've got the Philly cheesesteak bao buns, right?
No, I just get the pork barbecue bao buns.
Oh,
listen, hear me out. I'm from Philly. You don't put you don't do anything to a Philly cheesesteak other than put it on a piece of bread with some cheese whiz and maybe onions if you're that like that. I don't fucking do that. Cheese whiz.
Okay, I'll take it. I'll take your word for it. It was a really good book. Definitely going to keep up with this one.
It was a good book. I really book of the week, hands down. Samurai Good Boy Doggo.
I've got so that's it for indie. Mm-hmm. I've got DC, and I've only got a couple books left. So
I only have 2 books for DC.
Okay. Well, I technically one of them is from last week because I did read Detective Comics. I still felt like even though
did you finally read it?
I did. I honestly felt like I didn't know what was going on. I thought that this was going to be an arc where I could just step in, and I still felt confused about a lot of things.
Weird, right?
It was, but I really enjoyed it. The artwork is just absolutely incredible. Raphael Albuquerque, is that correct? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Does the artwork, and it's just absolutely beautiful. I did not hear the usual voice of Ramvi that I hear.
It feels like he's being held back.
Yeah. Yep. Even when he did Catwoman, I still felt like, I don't know. I still didn't feel it.
Something was missing.
Yeah, something was missing on that front, but I still like it enough where I love it going back to that like gothic
Gotham.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's a story in the back by Simon Spurrier and artist Danny. That was pretty interesting. But anyways, it was good. I liked it.
A book, I only had 2 this week. So one of the ones that I read that you totally missed on your schedule was Jurassic League number 4. It's superhero dinosaurs, man. It's just, I said this last week when we talked about it. It's fun. It's a good time. Todd McFarlane, please make me some dinosaur toys so I can relive my childhood fantasies. But this issue was really great because it finally introduced Dinosaur Darkseid, which is what I've been waiting for since issue 1. I want to see dinosaur granny goodness. Give it to me. I'm a good person. I deserve. Make this. Hear me out. I'm manifesting. 2023 is the year of granny goodness. I'm going to get comics. I'm going to get variants. I'm finally going to get a solo series.
We're going to get a New Gods movie.
Give me fucking.
Let's get a New Gods movie.
Give me granny goodness. God damn it. I fucking love granny. I'm Granny Goodness's #1 fan. It's fine.
With Jurassic League, I feel like this book it's a lot of fun. I truly have no clue what's going on other than like I know that it was
other than bonk. Like this is my palate cleanser. Like this is like that book that I can read when, especially if I have a large week like we did last week. I can literally just turn my brain off and go.
The 2 brain cell book.
No, it's not even a 2 brain cell book. I think it's a 1 brain. It might even be a 0 brain cell book. It's just enjoy the art. It's kinetic. It's fast. It's fun. Bonk, bonk, bang, bang. That's my review. Put it on the back of the trade.
Okay.
Jurassic League. Bonk, bonk, bang, bang. That comic girl. There you go, DC.
I love that. Well, I know that I don't think that you've been picking up this book, but Nubia, Queen of the Amazons, issue 3 of 4.
I actually read issue 3 because my girl was in it, but she wasn't in it enough.
A Hawk Girl. You know, it's so funny because I'm like, I don't think that.
I'm talking about Yara Flor.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Hawk Girl.
I'm talking about Yara Flor. And listen, Nubia #3 was cool. I love seeing Black women and women of color because everybody in this book is like a woman of color, except for the one white girl that shows up at the end. I really fucking just like seeing a book that's just all women of color as these badass warriors. I'm like,
Yeah.
damn, we really don't get to see this at all in media. So of course when it shows up, it's going to blow my mind, and it does blow my mind. But I'm getting really, this book made me really frustrated because Yara Flor is reduced to a minor background character, and it pisses me off because last year they fucking threw Yara Flor at the forefront. She's the next Wonder Woman. It's going to be the year of
She
Yara
was gonna get her
Flor.
own show or movie.
Her own show, her own series. I've got a Funko Pop, which thank you. But I don't have shit for Yara Flor, and I'm tired of these characters that I really like because we could throw Hawk Girl in there too. I'm tired of these characters that I really love and really appreciate and that could have room for growth and great storytelling. Get fucking crumbs, like literal fucking crumbs. Like these are two characters that, I mean, Hawkgirl especially should have her own fucking series, and yet we keep just throwing her in the backgrounds of like Justice League and Nubia and this. And I'm like, you know what? Y'all just hate me. It's fine. DC Comics, I pledged 10 years of my life to you, and this is what you've done for me. Fuck off.
This book was really good in the way that I think that transitioned from, there's a lot of like fighting scenes to getting really like emotional. And I think a lot of
it was good.
Nubia's story has been about like kind of like soul searching, or been like, am I really like the
and there's
right
like trauma behind it too.
Yeah. Yep. So I really did. I enjoyed it. I'm sad that there's only one more issue of this, but definitely
it's good. It's a good book.
Yeah. We need more. I hope we get more. That means there's one other book.
This is the same one. It's the same one, isn't it? It's got to be the same one. Yeah. Superman. Okay. Superman Son of Kal-El, number 14. I feel like for the past couple months, it's been, yeah, it was good. It's Superman. It's Tom Taylor. This issue reminded me why I fucking love this series. So in this series, we get to see the return of the Revolutionaries, which I'm like, fuck yeah, give them their own series, god damn it.
Hopefully, yeah.
So for those of you that don't know, the Revolutionaries showed up in Tom Taylor and Bruno Redondo's 12-issue maxi run of Suicide Squad, which if you have not read it, please read it because it is just so fucking fun. And there's a whole issue revolving around stopping Batman with a dog. And everybody who's a part of the Revolutionaries is like a person of color or queer, or they're just fucking amazing. And I love them. And Tom Taylor has been teasing that the Revolutionaries would make a return. And we've seen we've seen Wink, or is it Wink or Blink?
I think it's
Wink.
Yeah.
I think it's Wink. We've seen Wink and we've seen the Airy, pop up in a couple issues here and there. We revealed that Jay Nakamura was actually part of the Revolutionaries as well. This, we get to see everybody kind of do this massive team up. And we get to see some really great emotional moments between Jay and John, which I really like. We get to see Damian Wayne pops back in, and it's like a culmination of everything that I love about not only Superman Son of Kal-El, but the stuff that Tom Taylor has done. You know, it really solidifies that for me, that damn, this is a good book. This is the best Superman book that we've ever gotten.
Yeah.
This is revolutionizing, pun intended. This is revolutionizing Superman as we know it into the modern millennial and Gen Z era that he needs to grow with.
I agree. I think that, a Superman book is always going to sell, but it's going to sell to a certain type of person who has that like nostalgia, where it's like, I can only read a book if there's a certain amount of nostalgia in it, where this gives us so much more and really gets to the heart of this new character that I really like.
I love it. It's a good book. Read the book. Read the book.
Read the book.
DC Comics, back of the second trade, because the first trade is already out. Just read the book. That Comic Girl. I'm literally giving these to you for free, DC. Please just use them.
Use these pull quotes. Well, that's it. That's all I've got. Those were the comics I read this week. Anything else that you have, or anything else the chat has?
I gotta talk about it. Sheena, who's not here right now, Sheena was a doll. Actually, a lot of people were dolls and bought me some really great books for my birthday. But Sheena bought me 2 very special books. And I knew when I posted an Amazon wish list and was like, if anyone wants to buy me some comics, here's some comics that I wouldn't mind getting. I had Beta Ray Bill on that list. And Sheena was like, I'm buying you something. I got you. And I'm like, she gonna buy me damn Beta Ray Bill. Sure enough, she bought me Beta Ray Bill. She also bought me Many Deaths of Layla Starr, which I'm really excited about to have in my collection. But she bought me Beta Ray Bill. I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm so excited. I sat down the next day, I read it. I hate when you're fucking right. I hate when you're right.
Why?
Because I feel like I miss out. I get like that FOMO. I get FOMO. That's the best way to describe it, because it happened with Many Deaths of Layla Starr, where I read issue 1, was like, oh, it's good, but I'll trade wait. And then I read it for our book club that we did with JP. And I was like, fuck, FOMO. I should have read this book the whole time. Beta Ray Bill, I think, was even worse FOMO, because I'm like, this is just a fun time. The monster fucks. Well, the monster should fuck. It's Daniel Warren Johnson. It's just a fun cosmic adventure. I'm invested in a character like Beta Ray fucking Bill.
Yeah.
So if you have not read Beta Ray Bill, Argent Star, listen, Jen's already told everybody what a great book this is. I'm here to double down and be like, this might be one of the best Marvel books I've ever read.
And I think that we talked a little bit about how Marvel can be even more accessible if they do that. I don't want to call Beta Ray Bill a B-list character, but like, because it may be like B-list, C-list, but
it's true, because it's like when you take these characters that people don't know and you isolate them and you're like, all right, here's this character. I'm gonna give you a little bit of backstory, because in Beta Ray Bill, they're literally like, hey, he showed up on Asgard. He kicked the shit out of Thor. And I know nothing about Beta Ray Bill. Yeah. So now I feel like a Beta Ray Bill expert, but they're like, hey, he kicked the shit out of Thor. Odin was pleased, gave him his own hammer. Not only that, but that hammer apparently could let him change himself into his humanoid form, which you were hotter without the humanoid form. That's just me saying, whatever, it's whatever. But now he can't do it anymore because Thor's a dickhead. And I'm like, all right, that's all the information I need to know. Let's enjoy a story. And we've seen this happen with, I hate to do this to you, Tom King's Vision was very similar in the way that it did it. Jeff Lemire and Greg Smallwood's Moon Knight did the same kind of formula where it takes these, maybe not necessarily big characters, but takes characters and isolates them into a continuing story where it's like, that's it, that's all you need. I don't want to call it their black label, but it feels like what could be their black label when they do stories. Also, yeah. John, I fucking agree. She blew it. At this point, I was like, just let him bang the robot.
Let her. And that's the thing. That's if I had one, I do only have one criticism of Beta Ray Bill, and that's that Lady Sif doesn't bang Beta Ray Bill, and like jerk. Lady Sif she wouldn't get laid by the pipe. She would be laying pipe. Like, she would straight up be pegging Beta Ray Bill, in my opinion. Sorry, we've gone to the after.
This is Casually Comics After Dark, where this is the pegging segment of the show. Please make sure your children are not around to listen to this.
It's afternoon, so it is now nighttime. Your kid should be asleep.
But yeah, no, it was a very good book, and I hate when you're right. So, tell me, what's another book that I need to be reading that you were right on?
Wrong? Bolero.
I agreed. Wait, I agreed with those. I know. No. I'm talking about what is another book that you championed that I'm like, I'll get around to it eventually. Don't do it.
Swamp Thing.
Oh, okay. I was worried you were going to come.
Oh, I was going to say, I should have said that other one, but no, Swamp Thing. You should be reading Romney's.
Okay.
It's about to end, so it's about to be collected.
Perfect. No, I don't like that answer. Take that. I read the first trade. Go away.
I love it, but it's kind of getting off the rails a little bit.
Can I let you guys in on a little secret? I don't like to read. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm being kind of serious when I'm like, if a book is too dense and I look at it and I'm like, no, thank you. That was my Sunday. How was your Sunday?
My Sunday is good. We got to talk to David F. Walker.
Why y'all are literally coming in with the books that I've like read once.
You didn't even read Sandman once. You need to, and
I got through 3/4 of Sandman. I tried. I gave a valiant effort on that one.
Did you watch the show?
It's been a busy week, and I need brain. Listen, I've had migraines left and right. I need brain capacity to watch it. Every time I'm like, let's watch Sandman, and then my brain's like, nope, can't focus. So that's why we watched The Audition instead. Are you watching the? You need to watch The Audition. It's fucking weird. Or The Rehearsal. No, I'm sorry, The Rehearsal, not The Audition. The Rehearsal.
Okay, I was like, The Audition. Are you talking? Okay.
No, The Rehearsal. If y'all aren't watching The Rehearsal, I can't describe it to you, but it's cringe comedy at its finest. Please watch it.
Okay. The Rehearsal. That's how I'm going to spend the rest of my Sunday.
You'll love it.
Okay. Well, I want to say thank you to everyone who watched, everyone who joined in the chat. I also, David F. Walker joined us at the beginning, so if you missed that, it was a really great conversation. Especially towards the end when we started talking about the books that he's reading, or that loved. So thank you so much. We're going to have David on again. He promised, so those are his words, not
words.
Ours.
And we have them on video, so we can use those against him. It's great.
Well, excellent. Well, thank you everyone for being here. I really appreciate it. Please, if you feel so inclined to support our Patreon, link is below. If you'd like to join us there, we're really excited.
Part of the Casually Comics crew.
Yeah. Got some really cool, little rewards and stuff on there. So go and check that out. Otherwise, if you don't have anything else,
we will see you next Sunday.
I hope everyone has a fantastic Sunday. Bye.